Okay, I thought I'd talk a little bit about something that's, I have talked about this before on other podcasts with other people, but I need to be very. I was a little more, how do I say it, diplomatic in my opinions then about this situation, whereas now I really don't give a shit. So I'm gonna go for the jugular on this one. Um, I was let's start with well, for one, I put for my background picture here is the book that was being worked on but was canceled because the rat um, bought Lucasfilm, and um, the why I'm thinking about doing this now is because I just never thought about I needed to have some time away from everything to do with Star Wars for a while. And of course, I've been reading some of the books. I read the Episode 3 novelization, I read Darth Bane trilogy, I read Rise of Vader, which is the one that takes place right after Episode 3. I read Labyrinth of Evil. There's been a few few of the books that I didn't get around to at the time that I read, especially the Darth Bane trilogy, because I really, really wanted to read that. Which I loved it. I think it's one of the best Star Wars stories there is. I also read all the Tales of the Jedi comics with Nomi Sunrider and Exar Kun and all that stuff, which were really, really good. I was reading a bit of the Republic comics as well, just because I never got into the Clone Wars multimedia project very much. So at the time, because I was in college at the time and I didn't really pay much attention to reading books because I was too busy with school. But I've kind of, been doing it in my own way. I've also collected a huge number of the expanded universe books in Japanese, which I read. Trusabakura in Japanese, which was really good. I've always loved that book. I read it way back in the 90s when it first came out in English, but I wanted to read it in Japanese because I wanted to know how the translator was. And I read the Thrawn trilogy in Japanese, which was really, really good. The translator they have for the Japanese EU books during both eras, both during the Bantam era and the Del Rey era, is the same woman, and she's amazing. She gets the atmosphere. She really does. Now, I'm gonna say this straight out, and I don't care if people hate me for it. You can downvote me all you want, but there are a lot of people out there like Mandalore or other people like Matt Wilkins or Ryan Kinnell. These people are trying to support both, they're trying to say they support the EU, but then they're also saying we should have two equal universes, blah, blah. I'm completely against this, and I'm going to basically state why. They are not as old as I am. I was there, I was, what? I turned 3 the year Return of the Jedi came out. Although my birthday was after Return of the Jedi came out, because I was in May, and my birthday is after May. But I to put some cred to state some of my credentials. I was in the Lucasfilm fan club in the 80s. I went to the 10th anniversary convention that was held at what was the name of that hotel? It was where I grew up. I can't remember the name of the hotel anymore. It's been so long. But I was in the Lucasfilm fan club as a child. I was exposed to the modern expanded universe, which, what I mean by modern expanded universe is that the original expanded universe was the Marvel Star Wars comics in the 80s and, Splinter of a Mind's Eye, which came out right after episode 4. Which I wasn't alive for that. So, and what I mean by the modern expanded universe is the expanded universe that George Lucas decided to make about 10 years after, well, 8 to 10 years after after Return of the Jedi was released in the movie theaters. So that means the first two works were the Thrawn trilogy and Dark Empire. And I was getting into comic books at that time. And I went to the comic store by where I grew up, or well, not where I grew up, where I was living at the time. And I walked into the comic store, and the first thing on the very closest, there's two racks. There was like a rack up above where there was like three layers, like three racks of comics on the top and like 3 or 4 racks on the bottom. And I saw issue 2 of Dark Empire with Luke looking like Darth Vader with the World Devastator behind him. And I was 11, 12 years old then? So I was a fan of the Expanded Universe at the beginning of it. At the beginning of the modern Expanded Universe, which is what none of these other people can say. None of them are as old as I am. As much as they are fans of the Expanded Universe and they say, oh, well, we like the CGTCW, which is Dave Filoni's garbage, which doesn't belong. It doesn't exist. We're just going to ignore its existence. The only Clone Wars anything is the multimedia project, and anything else is bullshit. And I don't care if people don't like that opinion. You can suck me. Now, this is where, I had dropped out of high school, and during that time, when I wasn't going to school, I would go to the local Barnes & Noble, and I would sit there and read all the Expanded Universe books at the time, which was, they had just started releasing the Young Jedi Knights, I believe, when I stopped reading them. So I had read, Crystal Star, Teresa Baccarat, Thrawn trilogy, the Jedi Academy trilogy, so Children of Jedi and all those. But this was still before the Tales of the Jedi comics came out. This was still before the New Jedi Order stuff with the Yuuzhan Vong and all that stuff, which I didn't get into until I found out about it much later. But I was reading the early Expanded Universe books at the time. And I did start reading the Young Jedi Knights a little bit. But I never got to finish them. Which is sad, because now they're really expensive. And trying to get them in Japan is... yeah. Well, we'll just say it ain't a pretty sight. So, but this is where I differ from all of these other Star Wars people who are fans of the Expanded Universe. I was there at the beginning of the modern Expanded Universe. I was there when Dark Empire was being released each month. I was there when the Thrawn trilogy was being released book by book. So, and when you had other books like Truce of Baccarat and all these other books starting to pop up. So, if you want my cred, I've got a lot more cred than any of these people. And that's only because I was there first. And sure, I didn't, stick with it all the time. But at the same time, I wasn't like a lot of these people who were bashing the prequels when they first came out. Because I went to an early morning showing of episode 1 and I had no problem with it. I wasn't bothered by Jar Jar. I thought it was dumb character, but I knew, even at the time, I was, 18? I think I was 18. Yeah, I think I was 18, because it was 99 when it came out, I believe. I never, saw Jar Jar as a problem. It was all these people came out later and whined and complained and didn't understand what George was trying to do with the prequels. When I watched them again, after the rat took over, and I went back after being really pissed off about, the fake movies that they're making, I rewatched the prequels, and as an adult, I understood them so much more. And even now, Jar Jar doesn't bother me. And Jar Jar never really did bother me. And I remember for a time that I was starting to get similar. My attitude was kind of similar to a lot of people due to, you know, the popular thing to do at the time was the bash the prequels, and I was kind of in a, you know, I don't like episode 1 very much. I love episode 3. Episode 2's alright, and I still like episode 2, and I will die on that hill, because the people who complain about episode 2 could not read between the lines, even when I saw it originally. And yes, there will be spoilers, but everybody's seen episode 2 already, so it doesn't matter. When I saw Anakin slaughtering the Sand People, the Tusken Raiders, whatever you want to call them, they were Sand People when I grew up. So, when I saw him slaughtering them, I was like, cool! This is where Anakin starts his turn to the dark side. Cool! Like, the movie was long, but I never had any ill feeling towards that movie. Until, you know, after I moved to Japan in the late 2000s, when people were really, you know, shitting all over the prequels, I kind of did jump in a little bit on it, but I always, at least on a story level, I always said that I like episode 2's story. I thought the execution was a little off. I don't say that anymore. I think episode 2 is actually one of the better movies in the franchise. Because of the way that it shows Anakin, you know, growing up, maturing, and having to deal with all these, like, hormones and feelings. And Obi-Wan is not really being very supportive of those things. He's just saying, shut up, believe in the Force, get rid of all attachments, blah, blah, blah. But he couldn't, you know, feel, you know, like he could actually confide in Obi-Wan at all about what he was thinking, because he thought he would just get, you know, scolded or something like that. Of course, he's a teenager. He's going to get scolded. But the thing is that people looked at Anakin as whiny. And I can see where some of that comes from, except the thing that and also the love story is another thing that people complain about. The whole thing with Padme and, you know, like, oh, it's so dry and stupid and blah, 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 blah. I can tell you for a fact, when I was a teenager, I was as dorky as that when it came to girls. So, you know, I think people as adults forgot what it was like to be a teenager and have these, you know, these weird feelings and not being able to express them properly, plus not having somebody to talk to about them, to kind of, you know, work through them, especially the case of a Jedi, where they're not supposed to have attachments, they're not supposed to gain attachments, they're supposed to be completely, like, you know, secluded from everybody in the universe kind of thing, their own little thing. And, you know, I saw that as, you know, watching the movie later as an adult, like in my 30s, well, what, like five years ago when I rewatched it the first time, something like that, I can't remember. But when I made sure to pay attention to the parts that people complained about that movie. And everything that people complained about was they were misunderstanding what was being said. Yeah, George Lucas he's known for having bad dialogue in movies. But they wanted to focus on these little things and not see the story for what it was. Now, you're not going to hear that from a lot of fans that are my ilk, who, you know, grew up with the original trilogy, because that's all we had. But I will say that as a fan of the expanded universe, Dark Empire changed my view of Star Wars a lot. And as much as people complain about, oh, they brought Palps back, you know, that was George's idea. The comic writers were originally going to bring Darth Vader back. And George nixed that. He's like, no, Darth Vader's dead. So they had no choice but to bring Palps back. But the way that they did it shows it relates directly to what Yoda said in Return of the Jedi, is that once you start down the dark path, forever it would, dominate your destiny. Well, Luke turns to the dark side in Dark Empire. So it was all it all, you know, kind of it worked out that it connected directly to Return of the Jedi in that sense, which is something that made me very happy because I remembered that. Even as a, you know, 11, 12-year-old, I understood that. That was amazing to me. And plus the fact that we hadn't had anything new of Star Wars. I mean, we had the Ewok movies, you know, and I remember those and they were pretty good. I ain't gonna shit on them. People may shit on them, but they were what they were for a reason. Don't complain. Just be happy George Lucas went out of the way to kind of expand on the Ewok lore. We'll leave it there. But the whole purpose of this video is to say anyone who stands on the side of the CGTCW by Dave Filoni, or they stand by the Rats version of Star Wars, which is in Star Wars, it's Rat Wars. They are not my friends, and if you don't accept the fact that EU is the actual canon of Star Wars, it's not Legends, it is the canon. George Lucas approved of all of this stuff. So if you're going, George Lucas had nothing to do with, you know, what the Rat has done. But he had his hand in on all of the major decisions in the expanded universe. Now, if you want to accept TCW, just ignore it exists. Just watch the Multimedia Project and read the comics, read the books. I want to read the Republic Commando books. They're hard to get my hands on, but I want to get my hands on them eventually. But at a minimum, you should find a way to read the Republic comics, because I've only read a few of them and they're extremely good. I watched the miniseries, the one that was animated by the guy who did Samurai Jack or whatever. The stories are very good. They connect directly into Episode 3. They make sense within the context that they're based in. It makes a very cohesive story of the Clone Wars. I am not one of those people who wants to be an ally of the dual canon movement, because I'm not. I'm very much of, because I supported the EU from the beginning. From the modern EU, I was there from the beginning. I bought the comics. I didn't finish buying all the Thrawn trilogy books, but I did have Heir to the Empire at the time. I read, I didn't buy them, but I did read most of the EU books at the time, the novels at the time. That were up until about 97. I think I read most of them up to around the year 1997. So, I'm not, if you come at me saying, but TCW, PTCW, I'm going to say, no, it doesn't exist. And if you say, but episode 7, 8, 9, but Rey, but this, but that, I'm going to say, nope, doesn't exist. Because there's only one expanded universe, and that's the one that George Lucas spent 30 some odd years cultivating. And I'm not going to apologize for that, and you're not going to change my opinion on that. But I've been going back and watching some videos of people that I like Mandalore and whatever, and why TCW doesn't fit into the canon of Star Wars. And I will never say Legends. I will only say the canon, because the true canon is the expanded universe. And I will die on that hill. Well, I don't have to die on the hill, because that's just the truth. It doesn't matter that Lucasfilm was sold to a rat. It doesn't matter. The expanded universe that George cultivated for 30 some odd years, outside of TCW, because that was written in order to destroy the expanded universe, not in order to cultivate it. So that doesn't count. But all the other expanded books that Karen Traviss and James Luceno and Timothy Zahn and all these other people wrote for the universe, even the bad ones like Crystal Star, I accept them. I haven't read Crystal Star in forever though. I need to read that one. But I don't want people to think that I'm apologetic in any way, and I don't want people to think that I'm going to be all friendly and open arms about, oh, but the rat. I'll say, go read the Thrawn trilogy. Go read Dark Empire. Go read the Tales of the Jedi comics. Go read the Darth Bane trilogy. I will never, ever, 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 ever recommend anything that was written, made, filmed, whatever, by the rat. And I will not recommend anything that had to do with Dave Filoni's garbage. If you want recommendations for me, I will, you can leave in the comments. I don't care if you bash me. I don't care if you downvote me. Because I'm old. I don't care. I'm not here to be popular. I'm here to stand by my position. And that is that there is one canon of Star Wars. It is the expanded universe that George Lucas made. And you will never change my opinion on that. And I will never ever accept the existence of anything that goes against what was the expanded universe. So keep that in mind when you want to comment. You can bash me, you can flame me, I don't care. I'm an internet troll. I've trolled plenty of people. I don't care. But for people who want honesty, I'm not going to sit here and hold out an olive branch. You want to know Star Wars? I will tell you what to read. I'll tell you good stories to read. But they'll all be expanded universe, and they will have nothing to do with the rat. So I wanted to make that clear, because when I was doing podcasts a few years ago with other people, I kind of tried to keep my opinion under wraps, but I decided, it's time that I finally, state my own opinion, state my position, and you don't have to like it. You can complain that, you can claim oh, you're not a real Star Wars fan, blah, blah, blah. I was there before you people. Matt Wilkins is not as old as I am. He wasn't there for the beginning of it. Ryan Kinnell wasn't there at the beginning of it. Mandalore is much younger than I am. He even said he was a kid in the early 2000s. So I was already in college in the early 2000s. So I started college in 99. So, I was there before all of them. Yeah, they probably studied it a lot more than I have. I just read it for fun because I enjoyed Star Wars. Because that's what Star Wars was. Because that's all we had was books. We didn't have, we didn't have the prequels. So, I do want to make it a point that I will not talk about any of the Disney rat fake Star Wars movies. They are not Star Wars. They are mass-produced garbage, just like everything after the year 2000, which applies to Japanese animation. Outside of a couple outliers, it's all garbage. And a lot of people won't like my opinion about that either. But you will not change my opinion on this. And I will gatekeep. I'm not afraid to say I will gatekeep, because people are so afraid of the word gatekeeping. Oh, but you're gatekeeping like it's some kind of, pejorative or something. No. If I want to gatekeep, I'll gatekeep if I want to. But I'm not. But if you come to me and you say, I want to know more about the expanded universe, can you recommend some books to me that you think would be good for somebody who wants to get started in reading these books? I will, of course, be friendly and help you out. I will guide you in the right direction. But I will not accept, talk about, or have anything to do with the rat stuff. So I just want to make that clear, because I know probably some people who have heard my voice in other podcasts from a few years ago, with General CJG and Darkest Novia and some of these other people, will probably have noticed that I kept my opinions pretty tame for that, but I'm not going to do it anymore. Well, because I'm not really talking to them anymore, and also that I frankly don't care anymore. I've because of the rat, I lost a lot of my love of Star Wars. But then when I started reading a lot of the old EU that I hadn't gotten around to, it's like, damn, I should have been reading this a long time ago. So, I haven't read any in a while. I've been reading other books, but in Japanese. So I want to build my reading speed in Japanese a little bit more. Which is why I also bought all those Star Wars books in Japanese, so I could read faster. But that's basically what my video is. I'm not a friend of the Rat Wars. I'm anybody who promotes the Rat Wars. I am not, I don't want you coming at me. We can talk about the expanded universe all you want. But we will not talk about the rat. The rat doesn't exist. So I just wanted to do this. I felt, like making a video about this because I hadn't talked about Star Wars in a long time, and I hadn't had the desire to talk about it for a long time because the rat really, pissed me off. So now that I've calmed down a little bit, I've, taken some time away, I've read some other books that I hadn't gotten around to, I felt it was about time that now that there's no, fandom menace and all this other stuff going around, like it's like some, popular thing to hate on the rat, I I thought this was the best time to do it because it's not doing it for any kind of popularity contest. It's not like putting me in a group because I don't want to be placed in some group because, groupthink is stupid. I'm an individual and I'll have my own opinions and I'll stand by them. I don't need a group to protect me. So, but I just wanted to do this video, talk about that, and to get that off my chest because it's been something I've been thinking about for a while. And then I've been doing videos again. I figured it was about time I set the record straight about some of this stuff. So, so that's basically it. You can see links down below to other sites that I use. I do put exclusive content there because it'll get deleted from this place. So, and my exclusive content is discussing a lot of issues that I would get into a lot of trouble or get banned for talking about on this platform. So please check those out. I, translate news stories out of Japanese into English so I can give people an idea of what's going on over here because I got tired of people saying that, Japan is based, Japan is this, Japan is that during this whole situation. And I needed to set the record straight, so that's what I do on those sites. I also do some videos in Japanese from time to time, just because I need to translate research papers into Japanese. I want to explain to Japanese people what's in these papers. So I do that too, which is not fun, but I do it anyway. So if you want to see my other content, go to these other sites in the links below. If you want my social media is Minds and Gab, so just those two. I don't use mainstream stuff at all, because I don't want to be spied on. So, I will end the video now, and I'll see you in the comments if anybody wants to comment on what I have to say.